It's not very often, boys, that you work Sundays. What you miss out on is contributing to Team of the Week and your opinion of it. It was chosen by Gab Marcotti. There he is. Let's just take you through exactly the best 11 that he chose. No Fulham players, Brian. I feel he's against your...
Well, they haven't played yet, Dan.
De Gea, Alonso, Van Dijk, Mustafi, Coleman at the back, Anderson, Silva, Torreira, Sterling, Aguero, Morata. Pep Guardiola is your manager. Is that
no Southampton players?
No Southampton players. Is there not an argument to say that maybe Unai Emery could be the manager, Gav?
There is an argument for that, but I know perfectly well that, you know, if I put Unai Emery in there, then people would have been like, but he dropped 2 points at home. I thought Arsenal played really well, but I also thought that there were some key mistakes, and you know, in the end, I gave it to Pep because he scored 4 goals in the first half, and that was, to me, pretty darn impressive.
Now, normally Gab does this, I believe, with Stevie Nicol.
No, that's it. That's done now. That's changed this season.
It's changed? Oh, I bet Stevie's gutted it. Well, so what I'm saying is normally Gab is somebody to argue with,
yes,
if that's the right phrase, about who's in the team. Now he just has to argue with himself about who's in the team. Now, knowing Gab as I do, I think that is a very real possibility. That he could actually be arguing with himself about who's going in the team.
I think there's a Q&A coming.
But I really think Nicol and Mariner should be back on duty.
Maybe you could step up and choose your
No,
team.
because I'm not a regular on the Sundays, and I'll definitely not be in a regular on the Sundays if I've got to get involved in that nonsense. So
that's awesome.
Brian, any players you particularly would like to see that wasn't in the 11? How much attention have you been paying?
I like Torreira. I like Torreira in the Team of the Week.
Well,
I was watching the crew game on too.
I put a couple of Chicago Bears players in it because he was watching the NFL before he came on here.
That's doing well, Brian. Oh, and we've gone a little bit off.
Yeah, you've gone. I think Gab's done an extremely good job.
Really? Can you name any of the players that he chose?
Yeah, so what are you talking about? I saw Aguero. I mean, you got players that...
Aguero and some other...
Torreira.
Good. Excellent, boys.
Hasn't Nicol done well to get himself wriggled out of that?
If you do something as badly as he's done for the last couple of years, I think that pretty much sealed his fate. Another good win for Borussia Dortmund at the weekend, beating Wolfsburg. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich, more drop points for them as they can only manage a draw against Freiburg. As we welcome Gab Marcotti to the show. Gab, could we really be in a situation in which Bayern Munich don't win the Bundesliga?
Truth be told, yes, we could be in that situation, Dan. I think there's clearly issues right now between the manager, Niko Kovac, and some of the veterans, which is a little bit like what happened with the guy who started the season for them last year, of course, Carlo Ancelotti. Against Freiburg, set up very, very defensively, and they simply couldn't break them down. And on top of that, more controversy, Thomas Muller starting out on the bench. He came on with about 20 minutes to go, and very helpfully, his wife, who was up in the stands, tweeted something like 70 minutes gone, and now the genius sends him on, something like that, which just further, I think, sends a message that things aren't right in terms of the relationship with the manager, as well as the fact that the team isn't playing well.
Next up for Bayern, Borussia Dortmund in the league at the weekend. Meanwhile, Champions League action midweek. Gab with us tomorrow to look ahead to some of those big games, which of course includes PSG Napoli.
Look, you take the 3 points, you take the emotional performance, you take the fact that this is still very much a united team, and Romagnoli's kind of turning into Milan's version of Sergio Ramos. But there is an absolute ton, I think, for Rino Gattuso to work on.
However, they're getting the win. 5 wins out of 6, Gab. It's a great platform to build on. Have they got what it takes? Has Gattuso got the tools, you think, to build on this now?
I don't think it is a great platform to work on, Dan, because they haven't had good performances. They've had really ups and downs. In this game against Sampdoria, obviously against Inter, in the Europa League against Olympiacos. And it's one of those situations where I think the faith in Gattuso among some supporters and, according to reports, in terms of the club hierarchy, is waning a little bit as well. Remember, Gattuso's the manager who they inherited So he needs to keep getting these results, and he needs performances to go with them as well.
Inter with a big win as well, Gab. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? You and your colleagues' hatred of Inter Milan. This is a tweet that we received on Friday regarding the Serie Awesome podcast. Why are the people on the podcast, seriously, they are so negative when covering Inter? You're telling me that a team got lucky with 6 wins in a row. Come on, where do you find these unqualified dunces?
Well, where you find them is I'm right here. If you'd actually listened to the podcast, we actually praised Inter because in their last outing, certainly last weekend, and of course in the derby, they actually played really, really well, and they played really well again at the weekend as well. In fact, Spalletti changing a bunch of guys around, resting Mauro Icardi and Mattias Vecino, dusting off people like Dalbert, like Gagliardini, who scored, like Joe Mario again. So look, certainly I look at performances more so than results. And in that run, Inter also had games like the one against Spal, which they won, which they deserved to draw or probably even lose. So I think if you look at the last 3 games, Inter definitely on the up. Let's see if they can carry that form over against Barcelona.
I think the game itself was a good game for Columbus Crew.
Sure.
I thought that Justin Merrim, after last week, he wasn't at his best, was very important, influential in the first half, wasn't able to have the final quality. But when Higuain came on, the game changed. There was an idea, there was a place to occupy to free up Zardes more and more. They were able to get the 1 goal, and then Zach Steffen with some really important saves.
Craig does make a point. Empty seats, big match.
Yeah, not for the first time in these playoffs.
No,
What the hell's happening with these crowds in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's disappointing.
Like
I was in Columbus last
considering
weekend.
everything, the whole save the crew rhetoric. You'd imagine everyone would come together here. It's disappointing.
Yeah, last week they had more fans in the stands, so you thought this week that there would be 2. Yeah, listen, you never know what's going on at this time of year. I'm not going to make excuses. I would love to see that stadium sold out, but there's also still an understanding that new ownership hasn't taken over. So whether that has something to do with it, I don't know.
Right.
But I'm happy.
It's not a reason to pick a club up and move it because there's not a full stadium. Sure. Now, that's not a reason to say we're moving to Austin. However, by the very nature of what's happened over the last 12 months or whatever it is, you would think there'd be a damn lot of people more there saying, right, let's get behind this team.
Well, there is, and that's why they're going to stay, because there was that movement. But I think, to answer your question, Dan, there's still a lot left to do. 1 goal lead going into New York.
Red Bull's still favourites, would you say?
I would say Red Bull's probably favored. The thing I will say is the Columbus Crew, when they know they need to accomplish a result, especially when they already have the lead, you'd never count them out from upsetting New York Red Bull.
Fairy tale stuff, isn't it, so far?
For sure.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Extra Time. Thank you very much for all your tweets.
That's the furthest away I've ever seen that, Jib.
Right.
You see it?
Are we looking that bad?
I mean, you're small enough as it is. See if you go that far back again. You look as if you're about 4 foot.
I am. Looking up.
Say, we can do all sorts with technology, us.
What, move a camera?
Yeah.
The studio has gotten bigger, apparently.
I think I could do that job. I'm not.
Oh,
what are you
that's
reckon?
insulting.
No,
I
don't.
Oh.
I think.
I've tried it.
What,
There's a little bit more to the focusing than
Well, of course, yes. I don't think you'd like being behind the camera.
why.
I'd have to agree. Unless there was a microphone back there.
Me and you were saying, do you know what? I really like the idea of this Wayne Rooney testimony. I think it's lovely. Nice setup.
I would just defocus it. I would. They did that to me. They did that to me once in England.
Well, probably better.
I was on Premier League.
Did you have your teeth out?
I was on the Premier League channel that I used to work on the overseas broadcast, and the cameraman was a Man United supporter, and I was giving him a bit of stick.
No,
I was giving him a lot of stick, and he defocused me.
No way.
Yes, and kept his job.
Probably got a raise. Brian and Craig, if you're in the locker room of Southampton right now, what kinds of things would you hear being said amongst the players, and what things would you say to your teammates if you were there? Good question. How much talking would there be, or is it just kind of like a silence?
Well, I can't repeat what... I mean, it would be...
Naughty words.
I know, well, I played with Mark Hughes at Chelsea, and he's a quiet guy at times, but, I mean, clearly he's under pressure for his job, and he would have been ripping up the shreds at half-time, unless he's changed. I don't think so. But you need players. Fortunately, in my time at Chelsea and my time at Celtic in particular, we had guys who, if you weren't cutting it, you get in at half-time and nobody was spared. And we had at least half a dozen in each team, maybe more. So there was accountability. Some of these teams, and this is what frustrates managers, there's not enough accountability on.
Do you imagine there's a lot of finger-pointing going on?
Yeah, listen.
Like amongst the players, it's not me, it's him.
He's exactly right. I think locker rooms that have finger-pointing, that problem doesn't get sorted out quick enough. And I distinctly remember, you know Clarkey. Clarkey was on our team. And I distinctly remember he was injured at a game. We were up at Bolton. And for some reason, we were just not at it.
Right.
Everybody was not having a good game. There wasn't a person that was. And Clarkey was the first one, he came out of the stands, first one in the locker room. And this was back when Cookie was coaching. And as soon as everybody sat down, he went crazy. I mean, bonkers crazy. So much so that he had to be torn apart between another player. Cookie was pulling him off another player. And I think that right there set the tone that, listen, there is nobody is going to get away with anything.
Yeah.
If you're not holding up your end, you're going to be told. And I think it's important, not necessarily to go out and have a fight, but a coach needs to hold players accountable. Players can hold coaches accountable. I've been in locker rooms when that's happened. And you have to have the ability to communicate, but also know when a strong fist needs to be put down and your point needs to be made and things need to change. And if they don't, you're going to be out of the team.
Cookie, Clarkey, were you Bryony or McBridey?
No, I was...
Bridey.
I was...
Bridey?
Just Brian, I
tell you,
think.
my 97, 98, my first year at Celtic was... I commend the boys we had that year. That was arguably the most pressurised year in the club's recent history.
Yeah, that was when you had to stop Rangers when you
because Rangers had won the previous 9 titles and they were going to break the record, break a record, joint record by Rangers and Celtic of 9, and the pressure was incredible. I've never known the group of boys that we had, and they were all good players, but you know, the Larsons and Lamberts of this world, the list goes on. Never known a group of boys that if it wasn't going right would sort it out themselves. Because the manager Janssen was quiet,
right?
And the boys sorted it out themselves, and it got to physical stuff at times. But we did win the league. It took to the last day of the season, but it made up for some deficiencies in other areas.
That's quite organic, isn't it? You can't manufacture that. Yeah. That's the problem. You can't suddenly go on a course and now everyone's shouting at each other and you're going to sort it out.
And you have to be that type of leader. You have to have those type of guys. It's not like you can't be a quiet guy and a soft guy and then all of a sudden come out of your shell and go bonkers, because then everybody's like, what the heck happened to him? Something's happened at home or something.
Right.
It has to be someone that is that way, that is looked at as a leader throughout, and they can have the best implications positively on the team, rather than it be something where it's negative.
The worst is when the foreign boys are having an argument and it's all in their own language. Right. So we had like the Danes and Swedes and Italians as well. We had one Italian, Rico Annoni, a defender. But one day we had, and the coach was Dutch, Wim Jansen, from that great Dutch side of Cruyff in that World Cup final. We had one day, Henrik was a superstar at Celtic, but him and Jansen went at it one day. And what was sat going? We were going like that. Somebody going to interpret this? What's happening here? And it turned out that Henrik, in the end, had lost it so much. he could speak Dutch because he played at Feyenoord.
Yeah.
He was swearing at Janssen in Swedish.
Because he was so angry.
He was so angry, and we're going, what happened there? And they were having an argument in Dutch, and then Henrik lost it and switched to Swedish. And then I said, well, does the coach know what he said? He said, I'm not sure. So it was like pretty heated stuff.
Is Lukaku's time at United up already? United seem to look a better side since he's been arrested. Of course, he picked up that injury in training on Friday, didn't play in the Bournemouth win.
I wouldn't say it's up, but there's certainly not a guarantee. I don't know about you, Brian, there's certainly not a guarantee if they keep winning and players play well that he's just going to walk back into the team.
Yeah, I still think they're lost in how they want to play.
Right.
They don't really have a flow that, when they step on the field, they sort of know patterns. They understand where players are going to be. And
did they look that much better without him?
No, I mean, I think they look different because you have, players that tend to turn and go at players instead of, Lukaku holding up the ball and getting into the penalty area. But yeah, they're still trying to figure out how they want to break down teams.
Yeah, they got completely outplayed in the first half, didn't they?
Completely.
I mean, I know they won the game, and that's all that matters. But it's kind of getting over the line stuff. The same against Newcastle when they were losing. The same again at Bournemouth. It's a good trait to have. You don't want to be coming from a goal down all the time. But Bournemouth played some great stuff, and they absolutely knew what they were doing compared to what Brian was saying. Man United still look as if they're trying to figure it out. I mean, at this stage of his tenure and this stage of the season, still trying to figure it out.
Gab Marcotti is here as well. Gab, when you get angry, do you go Italian? Like when my wife shouts at me, occasionally she goes Portuguese. Like we're talking about the boys retracting back to Swedish, Henrik, for example. Do you go Italian?
I think it all depends who I'm angry at and who I'm shouting at, and whether I want them to understand or not. When there's nobody else around, like when you drop something on your big toe, or
yeah.
when you hammer your thumb when you're trying to put in a nail, I will normally swear in Italian, generally speaking.
Let's be frank.
When's the last time,
When have you ever picked up a hammer and nailed a nail in? You've got somebody to do that for you.
For that, surely.
Well, yes, that's exactly it. I was trying to come up with an example that more common.
So let me get this right. You put your
so
thumb.
Maybe how about this, Craig? When I hire somebody to come over and put in a nail, and they're late or they don't show up, which happens quite often where I live.
So every now and again, when you get the butler or somebody that's in your payroll at your house, of the many servants that you have, that you sometimes put your thumb in the way of their hammer, and they hit it. Is that right?
No, I don't. I actually tend to. I don't believe in that. I believe in treating my staff very well until it's time to terminate them. At which point, there are people who do that for me, usually lawyers.
Wow.
And if
we're really going down the hole.
If your staff are kind of annoying you a little bit, do they have to come in and you read your Monday musings to them? How does that work?
No. My staff are generally not involved with the creative process, Craig. They're over in their quarters unless they're needed.
Imagine if they came with some
a little
suggestions.
bell that I can ring.
Here's how to improve the Monday music.
Here's the team of the week. What?
Get up.
Gab's going to be a hammer when they come in. If anybody mentions team of the week, don't talk to me about Italian football.
Oh dear, and I am nice to Inter. That's it, we are done. ESPN FC back on your screens tomorrow. We'll be looking ahead to some of those big Champions League matches. And it's Fulham Huddersfield, Brian.
That's right.
Nah. I think the big question a lot of people are asking is Chelsea, can they go all the way this season? Certainly a fantastic start to the season, unbeaten in every competition, League Cup, Europa League, Premier League. I know they lost the Community Shield, I get that. If you want to take that into consideration, fine. What we do know, it has been a terrific start. The points, Sarri comes in late, not ideal. They've picked the baton up very, very quickly. This was a comfortable win in the end against Crystal Palace. Yes, we saw some of the defensive deficiencies again, particularly David Luiz for the goal. But the plus points, able to give Eden Hazard a rest again, a player who he's going to be absolutely relying on. Morata, much maligned, and rightly so, starting to find his feet. I know there's bigger games to come, but that will do his confidence once again the world of good. The other point is, and a lot of people are bringing this up, is rotation. One of the criticisms of Sarri at Napoli, with a very good team last season, they blew a gasket towards the end as Juventus ran away with the league. And one of the things was the players were tired. If you look at the Chelsea team, they haven't quite rotated as much as some of the other big teams. Some of the big stars at Chelsea have played a lot of minutes this year. Is that going to be a factor when we come into where we are in November, December, January? The FA Cup kicks in, it's winter, it's cold, you're going to have to rotate. That's why I mentioned giving Eden Hazard a break at the moment is good. The prognosis for Chelsea looks excellent. If they can keep this going, if Morata can keep scoring, if they keep the players fit and they can cut the errors out at the back, they could possibly push Liverpool and Man City in particular all the way. It's going to be interesting to watch how Sarri manages this squad. He's got the players to rotate, but I get the feeling if he doesn't get that balance right, they might just fall off that pace at the top of the Premier League.
Big weekend of decisions in the Premier League this weekend. The first game, a game you were at, Arsenal versus Liverpool.
Yes.
The offside, Mane's disallowed goal. Tell me about that one.
Well, first of all, it was disallowed, but it shouldn't have been disallowed. But there was two elements to that game, that particular play. First one was he offside when the first phase came in? When the ball came in, he was in an offside position, but wasn't interfering with play.
But does the assistant think he's not interfering with play?
Yes, he does, and therefore keeps his flag down quite correctly. The player goes on in the second phase when the shot's gone in. Mane is actually behind the attacker or the attacker and the ball.
But the assistant must think he's in front of him.
And that's
why
right.
he's given the offside.
Yes, unfortunately, the assistant, when you look at it, he's probably 2 yards behind play, doesn't have the parallel view, and probably guessed wrongly.
Then I go to two incidents. You know my dislike for goalkeepers, and I think they get away with a lot more than outfield players do. The first one, a cross comes in to Mkhitaryan at the far post. Alisson comes flying out. Mkhitaryan heads it just wide, but Alisson goes right through him, clatters him. It's a foul, late challenge, dangerous challenge. Why isn't that a penalty? And why doesn't he at least get a booking?
Yes, you obviously...
You know I've got a thing against that.
You do have a thing about this. All I'd say is that within the game, it's a physical game. And when people tackle, there are elements of contact. When a goalkeeper tackles or gets the ball, there's an element of contact. And the referees look at that the same as they'd look at an outfield player who's sliding in, wins the ball, takes the man slightly, but it's a contact, not a foul. And in the respect...
We've talked before about players following through, that's got to be a red card.
I agree.
And I would say the goalkeeper, Alisson, has got no consideration for Mkhitaryan at all. He's coming out, both fists coming out, his knees are, or his feet are out by his side. There is no way he can stop himself. That's, in my view, is reckless.
Well, in your view, it may be reckless, but in the game of itself, people expect the goalkeeper to come out. They expect the goalkeeper to challenge for the ball, and the forward knows that as well. So he's putting himself into
But
position as
Alisson
well.
knows he can't get the ball. Alisson's is too far away from it. He's not going to get there, so he has to stop it. If an outfield player comes flying in to win a header and he's never going to get there, the bloke heads it on and he goes into the back of him, what do you give?
You give the foul.
You give a foul. So why isn't it a penalty when a goalkeeper does it?
Because when the goalkeeper does it, the goalkeeper had every purpose of getting that ball. He knew he was going to get the ball. He was just slightly late. But the contact was made as part of that challenge, not as part of a foul challenge, as made.
So then you obviously believe the other one at the other end, when Leno comes out and Van Dijk comes in, it should be the same.
Sure, it's exactly the same. Exactly the same decision, and that's why the referee made exactly the same decision and did not award a foul.
Yeah.
From
From my point of view, both of them were penalties and a yellow card for the goalkeepers. We'll move on from that. Vardy shoots from 5 yards out in the Cardiff-Leicester game, and Bamba on the line hits him on the hand. His hands are spread. Penalty?
Yes, when Vardy shoot, Bamba knew what he was doing. His arm was outstretched to make it that target bigger. The ball struck his arm, went over. The referee gave a corner kick. He realised there was a deflection, gives a corner kick, didn't see the arm. Had he saw the arm, had he saw that handball, Bamba would have been sent off for a denial of a goal.
Right. Not a goal scoring up, an actual goal.
A goal, because the ball was entering the net, and it should have been a penalty kick. Although, when you rewind that tape, should it have got to that position anyway?
Not if VAR was in operation, because there would have been an offside before that.
There was. In the phase of play leading up to Vardy getting his shot away, there was an offside that was first and should have been penalised. And as you quite rightly say, if we had VAR in operation, they'd have picked that up and pulled it back.
Now, as a referee, because I like to get in the mind of a referee, because it's a difficult thing to do, if Lee Probert, who was the referee in that game, goes in at half-time and realises he's made a mistake with the handball and not given the penalty. Does it change the way he refs the game in the second half?
The obvious answer is no.
Yeah.
Although having been in that position before, you've got to realise that you can only affect what's going to happen. You can't affect what's already happened. So you don't want to go into that spiral effect. And referees, nowadays referees, are having psychology lessons. They're having people read their minds, look at themselves, so they're prepared for that situation. When Lee Probert would have gone in at half-time, if he had realised he'd made a mistake, or somebody had notified him he was making a mistake, the thing to do, mental games, is to put it out yourself, put it out your mind, get the next decision right. Don't make 2 wrong decisions just because you're looking at a third one behind.
In the same game, Gray scores a goal and takes his shirt off, and most of the pundits and everyone would say, well, it's a silly booking. You know, why did the referee have to book him on an occasion like this? You would disagree with that, yeah?
I've got to disagree with it, actually. When it happened, I actually saw the pictures. You saw Lee Probert's face grimace. He realised that, hey, I'm going to be the villain of the piece here. Gray's taking his shirt off. There's a slogan there, you know, in respect with the chairman, and it's done in good taste. However, the law says if you remove your shirt, you are yellow carded. And if Lee Probert decided not to, well, then where's the consistency? Cardiff and Leicester went out, played the game in a professional manner. The referees have also got to go out in that game and play it in a professional manner.
The last game I want to talk to you about is West Ham versus Burnley. Dean Garner goes down in the box under a challenge from Dufour. Penalty?
Yes, he's caught him late. Roger Rees, the referee there, doesn't give that. I think that was a penalty kick.
So he got that wrong, but you would give him credit, I would imagine, for the second half when Felipe Anderson scores his goal, because there's, I think, a very dangerous challenge in midfield by Tarkowski on the same player, and then Felipe Anderson's running through on goal. He allows advantage, Felipe Anderson scores. The referee then goes back and books him. Could he have sent him off for that challenge?
Yes, but before I answer that, let's just go back to the point there you made, the real positive aspect of Roger Easton refereeing. It was his second game this season in the Premier League. He allowed a fantastic advantage, reading the context of the game, allows Felipe to go through and scores West Ham. Now let's just go back. The challenge that went in, it was a poor challenge. The guy's rushed in, he's lunged in, he's caught the man, but when you look at it in slow motion, it's actually the tackle is in front of him rather than through the body. Roger East has probably looked at that and thought to himself, maybe it's a yellow, could be a red card when you look at it in real speed. The thing that went for the player was the fact there was a bit of a time lapse. And sometimes referees, when they look at it straight away and there's a time lapse, they start to think, actually, I'll mitigate this, I'll talk myself out of this a little bit. And that may have happened. Although, looking at it again, I can understand why he only gave a yellow card.
We've learnt something new today. Psychologists to referees. When are you seeing yours?
As soon as the show's over.